Hey there, my wonderful world of social media. Yours truly, Jimmy Williams. I'm coming back to you again with another great informative video. Many of you know me from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as the Wisdom Economics Coach. I pray every day for you, on a spiritual level, that you guys continue to take whatever I give and dissect it, chew up the meat, spit out the bones, and apply it to your lives and become better human beings and build your businesses, okay? Some of you who don't know me as Wisdom Economics Coach, you know me as Apostle Jimmy, because I'm a minister as well, and I tackle issues about the nation and about the country and the world that are very uncomfortable. There's another show out there, it's called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And if I said the name, you guys will know who he is, but I'm not him, but what I'm saying is I tackle things similar to what that gentleman tackles, things that people don't want to talk about, about our country and about, racism and hatred and, bigotry. And I deal with, things that are plaguing the Black community, my community, the Hebrew community. For those who are awake, understand when I say Hebrew Israelites, you guys know that we are the Black people in this nation. We've discovered that we are the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible. Okay, so when I say that, I say Hebrews, that's what I'm talking about. But we know who we are, and we know that what we're up against, we know the fight that we're up against. But very seldom, us as Black men and women who are in the business sector will sit down and dissect and talk about what's really going on behind the scenes when it comes to business, ministry, and everyday life, et cetera, et cetera. We don't really talk about it because many are intimidated to talk about it, because anytime you talk about race or racism or things or injustice, then all of a sudden they shine a light on you and say, hey, you're the racist, don't talk about it, right? Well, let me just set the record straight before I talk about what I want to talk about. Black people in this nation cannot be racist. Now, to all my white friends, I want you to watch and listen to this, my brothers and sisters. No shade on you. If you're my brother or my sister, and you can take this and listen to this, I want you to listen to all of it. No shade on you, but I'm going to talk facts here, whether you're Black or white or Chinese or Indian, it doesn't matter. I'm going to talk straight facts for about 20 minutes. And I'm going to talk about my own life and what happened to me when it comes to racism, to give this perspective and relevance. But back to what I was just going to say. Black people cannot be racist in this nation. And make sure you understand what I'm saying here. I didn't say they couldn't be prejudiced. When I say they cannot be racist, I simply mean that they don't have the power to oppress and subjugate another group of people economically. Okay, we can't really control the other groups and control how much money they make and control how many of them go to prison. We can't write certain laws, unless we're in government and we have the power to oppress the other groups of people. But that's normally racism is capitalizing and controlling a group of people for economics, okay? And to impose your will on them so they can only prosper but so much, they can only get so far. So I've never seen a Black person be able to do that. Now, you may be an entrepreneur, have your own job, and you say, I'm not gonna hire white people. But the thing is, when you say you're not gonna hire white folks, the system is built for them to prosper anyway, so they don't necessarily need you. They can go somewhere else and get a job. Well, if you look at the white country, the white nations around the world, okay, because racism is not just in America, but it's all over. But if you look at how they set it up, they outnumber some of the other groups, and they're able to put systems in place to maintain power, and that's what's going on here in the U.S. So that would be racism, okay? And I'm going a little bit deeper. Every white person you see that walks up and down the street is not a racist. 90% of them are not. I know that's tough to hear, but hear me out. They may be prejudiced, okay? And they may be a part of the whole racist system that's established, but most of them are not racist, okay? Unless they're in government, they're in politics, they're in the police force, presidents, okay? People that can write laws against Black folks, judges, okay? i.e. lawyers, attorneys, people that have power to write laws to subjugate other groups of people. And that would be probably 5 to 10% of the white population that would be the actual racist people. But, big but there, racism, it seeps down into the fabric of everyday culture in this country. So the other 90% of the white folks you see out there, they're affected with racism, and they're capitalizing from that system, all right? And they're able to spew racist and hatred comments, but that doesn't necessarily make them a full-blown racist. They're a part of the racist system. Even Black folks are part of the racist system because we have been subjugated to it, and it's harming us, but it's harming white folks too. with their ignorance, okay? So I wanted to clarify that. So most of the white folks you see out there are not racist. They may be prejudiced, but they're not racist. No black people in this country, not even the 10% could be racist because we don't own the systems to control other groups of people. Now that we've established that part, we can get into some other things. What I want to talk about is how real is racism right now and how relevant is it to the current society? And I want to talk about my experience with racism, prejudice, and white supremacy in my personal life from when I was a kid up until right now, at 47 years old. I think it's important information to give you guys, but let me start back when I moved from Rochester, New York, when I was 7 years old. 7 years old, I moved from Rochester with my mom, dad. I tell this story all the time. And my brother and sister, my sister was just born, 1983. I think it was February 1983, okay? We moved to live with my grandfather. We came from New York, Rochester, New York, upstate, to live with him. He lived down south in a small town called Lake Butler, Providence to be specific. He lived there for a while. Well, he was born and raised in that area, but what I'm saying is I lived there with him for a while until we got our own apartment. And, you know, I always tell you guys, he was my first mentor, and he dealt with a lot of racism because his family had, you know, generational property, you know, inheritance, like air property handed down, and some of the white folks stole some of it from him through manipulation of the system. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And he had people that came on his property, called him the N-word. And I'm going to be very graphic here. He said that they call him nigger, you know, consistently, all right? There's different versions of the word, but nigger is nigger. When they put the ER on it, when it's coming from those other groups, that is meant to hurt you, and that is a word that I think it's used to, well, I want to make sure I'm using the right word here, to weaponize you, basically, to put a stigma on you of degrading you that goes back to slavery. But they would call him certain dirty things, but he would never let them come on his property and disrespect him. I told this to a friend the other day. He had a man, one of his sons had someone living with him, and his son was married to a white woman, and he's still married to that person to this very day. And the white man came up and said he couldn't have this person in the house, in his house that he built, you know, in his property. And he took his gun and put it right beside him and said, listen, sir, you got to leave this property. That white woman can stay here because she's married to my son, and you can't do nothing about it. Okay, so he took a stand for racism, for white supremacy, I would say, right? And the racist spirit that the man came with, the prejudice spirit that he came with. He took a stand. So that was the first time that I heard about something like I wasn't there to see it. But at 7 years old, back to me now, I went to school and I had never heard the word nigger before in my life, okay? I'm standing at the water fountain, I'm drinking water, and I had a little, you know, this is 83, so my mom put this little S curl in my head. I had, you know, I'm looking like Michael Jackson, right? And I had one tooth missing here, you know, I was buck tooth, whatever you want to call it. I was a little skinny guy. And I remember a little white kid was behind me. And he came up to me and he said, move or something, he said to me. I forget what it was. It was so long ago. And I looked at him, I said, you're going to wait, right? And I guess I didn't move fast enough. And he pushed me, right? And I remember him saying that word to me, nigger move, is what he said. And me and him fought. And guess what? He got the best of me. He punched me and nearly knocked me out. You know, he was a little bit bigger than I was. But I fought him. But I went home and told my mom and dad about the word. They was like, yeah, they say that here. So, you know, my mom and dad, my mother grew up in that same area where we went to, where my grandfather lives, in Providence, Florida. Small town, Lake Butler, Florida, Providence, like 2,000 people. My dad grew up in an even more racist town called Greenville, right next to Tallahassee, Perry area and all that. And they hear that word quite frequently. Well, in Rochester, I never heard the word. You know, I saw white folks there and, you know, we mingle and all that. And that doesn't mean racism wasn't there, because racism and white supremacy and prejudice is everywhere, okay? But I heard the word physically for the first time, and I went home and told my mom about it. My mom and dad, pardon me, and they told me, yeah, they say that. That's what they do here. So I was taken back by it. Now, the funny thing is, I grew up later, and when I became, right before I graduated high school, me and this gentleman's name, I won't say his name, me and this gentleman became great friends. So one thing I understand about white supremacy, racism, and prejudice, it is a learned behavior. Prejudice simply means you don't like something, you don't like someone, right? Because of the way they look, whatever, but that doesn't make them necessarily racist. So there was a lot of prejudice words being said to me and my family and all that, because we was in a predominantly white area. you know, when you get out of the woods in most of the towns, it was, you know, majority white folks in government and all that, and they still wanted to keep things back the way it was back in the 1920s and 30s, and you know, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, all that stuff before. They wanted to keep things that way, even in the 80s when I came down to Florida, all right? So I began to understand that there was something about the system that was broken. Even though I'm a kid, I don't really understand what's going on, but I knew that word was wrong. I knew the word was wrong, and I realized that I had to make a difference. I couldn't just retaliate. Now, I did hear some other family members use the other word cracker, right? So that was, I guess, the retaliation word for being called a nigger, right? But cracker has a different meaning. It has several meanings, but some people says that it's meaning the slave owner was cracking the whip, so he was called the cracker on the slave, right? Then my dad sat me down and said, no, Jimmy, I want you to look at this. There's a certain type of white person in the South that had a certain type of house. It looks like a box, a cracker. It was called a cracker box. And if you lived in that house, you were considered a cracker. That's what he told me it was. But that was just, again, it was a retaliation word, a word of weaponry toward them. So then I realized, wait a minute, the more we retaliate, that doesn't fix the problem. So I don't use that word toward white folks, even when they make me upset, right? We don't want to continue to do what's being done to us to make it better. However, you should stand your ground, and if they disrespect you, you call them out on it, you know what I mean? And stand up for your wife and your children and whoever is important to you. You don't let people come in, no matter what color they are, and disrespect your family with those words and insults. You stand up, be a man or a woman, whoever you are, for your family. But I'm telling you, you know, retaliation that way doesn't really work. So you hear cracker, 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 nigger, 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 and it was, you know, but the word nigger was worse. Here's why. Because back in slavery, they used that word to make black people feel that they were subhuman, right? That's why it's so bad. It went from Negro, okay? Now Negro, if you go do the due diligence, go Google the word Negro and the Vanderbilt Study Bible. Google them together, and you'll find out that they wrote in that book that the word Negro was something used to separate the Israelites from all the other black people, because there's all types of black folks in Africa, different parts of the country and the world, but there are certain groups that were not associated with Africans and other black people. The Negroes was a code word for the Israelites, the Hebrew Israelites, okay? So white people in certain groups knew this about who we are, and they still know this today. This is a fact. It may be under the cover, it may be hidden for thousands of years, but Negro is a cover-up word for who we are as Israelites. But it went from Negro to nigger, you know, and then the black community took the word and N-I-G-G-A and made it nigga, right? To not to weaponize ourselves, but to give us some kind of confidence in hip hop. It wasn't really to put us down. So we have a totally different meaning when we say it in the hood, right? As opposed to a white person saying it. Unless they're in the hood too, and we give them the permission to say it in other groups, because other groups are saying it, or Asian, you know, unless they're in our group and they're saying the word as a hip hop slang term, right? But other than that, it was used to weaponize us. Okay, but Negro means we're Israel, okay? And it's in that book, it talks about Ham, you got, so if you understand the Bible, I got to talk about this real quick to bring clarity. If you look at the Bible, it talks about 3 groups of people that populated the earth, okay? Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Hamites, most of them are in Africa. That's called the land of Ham. But the Israelites came down from Israel when we were scattered, driven out of the land, just like Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ said we would be scattered. We went into the land. The Hamites knew who we were. And that's how we got the name Negroes. So in the Vanderbilt Study Bible, written by white men, by the way, not black men, they said Ham is the progenitor of the black races, but not the Negroes. Okay, so to understand who we are, you got to read all that. So we're a distinct people. So nigger, you know, when they start calling us that's kind of telling you who we are. It's an insult to us, but the Bible, the word does say that we will be a byproduct to the nations. They would talk about us and treat us a certain way until the end times. So I got off track. Let me get back on track. So that's where the word came from. Speeding up time as I'm growing up as a young man. The funny thing is, when I got in high school, I had a very strong desire for white women. Okay, this is a touchy subject, and it's almost like the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to touch these kind of conversations, but black men, we have to address it, right? I started wanting this desire to have white women. I didn't know why. There was this young lady in 10th grade. She was very famous and successful, and and her father was a judge in the town I grew up in. I won't say her name, but she had a crush on me and I had a crush on her. My dad sat me down and said, son, stay away from white women. I'm like, what is it you don't want me to have? To understand what I was feeling, it was the desire to have something that I was supposed to stay away from. It was supposed to be a forbidden fruit, right? And for my safety, I didn't mess with her, but I really wanted to. And then my senior year in high school, I didn't realize my dad didn't hate white women. He was trying to protect me from something. But in my senior year in high school, I ended up, I had some other white women that I was talking to and dating. Never had sex with them, but we were talking and dating and all that and kissing and, but I had that strong desire and I didn't know why. This goes back to slavery, our self-image, how black men and women were programmed to see themselves through that word nigger, to be less than, and to be, white is the standard. That's what we were taught until I really woke up to who I was. And then I understood, no, white is not the standard, but you don't know that until you wake up, right? When you're asleep in this whole system, like a matrix, you don't know that. So that's where the desire came from. I kept saying, why am I so drawn to them? What is the problem? When I went to college, it continued. White woman, white, and I started dancing. I became a very successful break dancer, b-boy, quote unquote, going to nightclubs, dancing in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando. And I was pretty good. And I was only dating not black women, Spanish women, white women. That was it. I was very synonymous with that, right? And it wasn't nothing to do with black women. But again, that was the effects of the prejudice and the racism and the white supremacy I was exposed to over time. I didn't understand that, okay? Let me go deep now because I got to get done within 10 minutes here. Let me go deep for a second. So I graduated college, and this is right before I gave my life to Yahushua HaMashiach. So I started waking up to some things, but I was like 21 years old. I dated a white woman for about 6 months. This woman was from Indiana. And after we started dating, she told me, she was like 21 years old, 21, about the same age as I was. And she had cancer. She had cancer. So something bad was going on with her body. But I had a chance to talk to her. And she told me, I said, I know there's racist people out there, and I know the Ku Klux Klan is real and all that. I said, but our country's getting better. We're not really there no more. She looked me in my eyes. This was back in 1997, 96, somewhere in there. I was born in 75, so it had to be 96. She said to me, don't you believe that? She said, Jimmy, I'm 20 years old. Guys, this is going to get really graphic. I want you to listen to this. And she said, I've seen a black kid get lynched with my own eyes. This is what she said to me. And then I understood her pain. I understood why did she have cancer? She had access to things that really messed her up psychologically and caused a lot of health problems. It could have been genetics. But something was going on with her where she was very, very ill. But she said she saw the Klan with her own eyes. So maybe someone in her family, maybe her dad or whoever, made her sit down and watch this. She saw them run down a little boy, black boy, in Indiana, tie him up. Okay, they tied him up. She didn't tell me everything they did to him. They might have sodomized him or whatever they did. I don't know what. She told me that they did some bad things to him before they killed him. But she said I guess she said they hung him first, and then they set him on fire. They tried to hang him. He didn't really die or something. Then when they set him on fire, his body began to just, he was trying to escape. And by this time, she's just crying, nothing but tears everywhere. And I said, is this real? Are you joking? She said, look at my face. Am I joking? She said, Jimmy, the Klan is real. My family is a part of it. So you can only imagine the pain I felt for the little man. I wasn't even there. So when black people, when we get killed, it's the same thing with other groups. If it's not me personally, doesn't mean I don't feel it. I feel the pain. I feel the oppression from another person that looks like me getting oppressed and dying. So don't ever tell another black person or white person that they can't feel what other people are feeling that look like them, right? So that's where I'm going with it, and it really put me in a place of prayer because I'm thinking, okay, I'm with her. What if she goes back and tells her dad something, or and he knows where I'm at? I could be next. But I was in psychologically, it really messed my head up that a white woman confessed to me that she saw another black man get lynched, burned alive right in front of her. And this is a boy, she said. So the boy was probably a teenager or something like that. So now that was a long time ago, but it's still happening today is what I'm trying to get at. It's still happening today. 3 or 4 years ago, I forget what state it was. It was a southern state. They actually cut off a black man's head. I gotta go look up these stories. I'm gonna put them in the comments and put his head on someone's doorstep. This is a place in Mississippi, one of the southern states. Okay, you constantly hear that young black men and women are hanging themselves. Now I'm not saying we're not above suicide, because some of us are still doing that, but on the large alarming rate that they're putting it out there, no, they're getting lynched. Okay, lynching can be a shooting in the street. We see a lot of that. I'm talking about hanging from a tree, the old school style of lynching. These people are young. They're pardon me. They're finding them on these trees, and they don't know how they even got up there to hang themselves. If they're going to hang them, it's very hard to hold yourself up and do it. Somebody had to do it. There had to be a cohort or a group of men to do it. While I'm on that subject, police officers, judges, all these people in power, I don't care if you're on the left or the right. To me, this is why I tell people, be careful, especially black people, with politics. Okay, even though some things I agree with, some I don't agree with. White supremacy operates in the Democrats and the Republicans. So I don't trust either one. You got one eagle, right? But two different feathers. So the left side of white supremacy would be the Democrats, right side would be Republicans. Republicans will lynch you in broad daylight. The Democrats would do it with writing laws, right? But they both will lynch you. I'm being facetious here, but you get my point. I'm penning an illustration. So I tell people, stay out of that. So they're still doing that on a massive scale. They keep saying, no, black people are killing them. No, they're not. The hatred for black people in this country, particularly Hebrew Israelites, okay, the people that our ancestors came over here on slave ships, that hatred's still there. The racism is really real. Now, let me end this conversation on somewhat, let me be a little bit objective as far as when I say white supremacy and hatred, a lot of that stuff's bad against us. There are some, here's my objective side of this, because I hear other voices saying, oh, all white people are not like that. That's true. There's a lot of good white people in this nation. But remember one thing before I talk about this last point. Racism and white supremacy is in the fabric of the nation. It's embedded in it. So over 300 million people here, every one of us has some residual white supremacy and racism, black and white, because it's a system. It's a brainwashing. In fact, I did a few interviews with Jane Elliott. You guys know who that is. She's one of my spiritual mothers and one of my mentors. She said, racism and white supremacy starts when you go to kindergarten or preschool. You get indoctrinated with it in the school system. This is a white woman saying this. It's indoctrinated in the teachings. So she said, if you go to school, white or black, and you graduate and if you're a white person, you're not a racist, you didn't learn anything. If you're black and you feel oppressed, then you learned everything. If you're black and you come out and you're not oppressed, then you didn't learn nothing, because they were unable to subjugate you to that teaching and that indoctrination. All right. Finally, let me just talk about the cops really quick. All right. This is very, very important what I'm going to tell you. Me personally, I ran into about 4 cops. Okay, I'm 47 years old. Most of the cops I ran into were in my 30s and 20s. Most of the time, it was when I was speeding on the road. Right. I'm going to start at college before I had a car. Okay. I was going to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. I must have been 19 years old. I was in my white woman zone. I had the dreadlocks, and I was a dancer. I thought I was cool. I had the real baggy pants. Black people know what I'm talking about. I used to wear cross colors, and who else was big at that time? Cross colors and FUBU, For Us, By Us, and some couple other ones that were really, really good. Carl Kanai, right? And I'm on my bicycle, and I'm going from my college dorm to the store. Cops come from every direction, right? I'm just going to get some chewing gum, and I'm going to go back home. And I was training, mind you, I was training to be an artist. I was training to be a commercial artist. I became an illustrator or a portrait artist as well, but I was training to be a commercial artist, and I worked a lot and all of that. But that day I had a day off. I was like 19 years old, going to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. So this is Fort Lauderdale by the beach, Sunrise Boulevard. If you guys know what Sunrise Boulevard is, it's a nice area, but it takes you right to the beach, and it turns into North Federal Highway. It's a very nice area where I live. But the cops swarmed me from every direction. I got off the bike. They said, son, lay down. I lay down, hands on my back, took off my shoes, looking through my socks, trying to find drugs. Now, that was devastating. I didn't even cry about it. I just felt weird that I'm in college. I'm trying to do the right thing, but I didn't look. Here's the thing. I didn't look like, you know, I didn't look the right way to be going to that school. I was from the hood to them, and I looked like, here it goes, I looked like a guy that had done something wrong. After they had personally stripped me and everything and turned around and just said to me, I'm sorry, you're the wrong person, you can go now. And I got to take a pen here and say this. I praise the Most High for praying grandmothers and praying family members. My grandmother prayed me through this thing. At the time, she was still alive. And my grandfather was dying, I think, at 19. When I was 19, he died. But she was always praying me through this thing. And that's probably why I'm still here today. Because anything could happen. Just like you see black men getting shot, they could have done anything and covered it up, right? And I called my dad. He was fiercely like, he said, that's fully racist, that's prejudice and racist. He said all this, and I didn't understand what he was talking about, because I was, again, when you're younger, you're not thinking, you're just thinking about, I was thinking about white vagina, right? And going to clubs, dancing, you know what I mean? I didn't care about anything else. I wasn't thinking about, there was a war on my soul. There was a war, when they were saying war on drugs, that's, i.e. Cold War on black people. That's what that was. It was a war on me, and I didn't even know it. So when people say there's a race war coming, no, the race war is here. The war is the Hebrew Israelites against the Hebrew Edomites. The Edomites would be the white nations that are in power. There's a war going on right now for our souls. And you're thinking it's going to come. It's already here. Okay? And people who are really big in the scriptures understand this. Judah, which is, that's one of the tribes that we are here, Judah. The other tribes are scattered in other parts of Africa, but Judah is scattered all over the world. But Judah, two-thirds of us get cut off. Let me say it again, 2/3. So out of 1 million, you're talking, 700,000, okay? Almost something like that. Well, do the math on it. It's, it's 330-something thousand people that will be left. When I say cut off, I mean there's judgment coming to us for our rebellion against the Most High of Israel, okay? So that judgment is just being lifted in 2019. We're still coming out of that judgment after 400 years, but the powers that be are not gonna stop. So that's why my grandmother prayed me through it, and she didn't understand the awakening and all this, like I'm telling you now, so you can fully understand the perspective of what's going on here. This was so powerful, and I understood that our people, most of us, even if we're awake, we have to be careful. We're being chased. And I didn't understand it. My dad wanted to come do something. He couldn't do anything about it. Okay? Let me go a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the cops, because that's the first episode with the cops. I wasn't really mad at the cops for that, because I'm thinking, what if there's a guy around the corner that had dreads, looked like me and all that? I don't know, right? Let's go a little further. Many years later, with the current wife that I'm with today, because I was married before for 12 years, but this woman I'm with today, has some other experiences. And, we experienced a lot of poverty, okay? When we were in Florida, we were driving around from place to place, living from place to place, because we were, when I started my businesses a long time ago, before I came to Atlanta here, 4 years ago, we were struggling. And there were times where we didn't have enough money. When we lived in an area called Palm Bay, we didn't have enough money to renew my license, or not my license, but my, my insurance, and my license plates expired and things of that nature. So sometimes I'll be on the road driving with an expired license suspended license, because I didn't know that they suspended my license for non-payment for the insurance. So I'm thinking I'm good or not. Well, there were several times we were driving to Fort Lauderdale and back, and to Orlando from Palm Bay. Palm Bay's next to Melbourne. It's like 2.5 hours, and then I didn't know the danger I was in by driving with a suspended license. There were several times the cops pulled me over. One incident, we were driving really fast from Fort Lauderdale to get back to Palm Bay to go to church at the time before I woke up. The cop said, you're doing like 90 miles an hour. Your tag, your license is suspended, your tag is expired. I can lock. He came up, and let me just tell you a little bit about how the cops are trained, from what I'm understanding. Their number one job is, to them, they're trying to protect us, right? And they try to protect themselves as well. That's true, that's a fact. And protect people in society, that's what they say, right? So when you see them with their hand on the gun, on the holster, that's a habit. To be honest, every time I've gotten stopped, most cops have their hand in this area, right there by the holster. It could be, you can interpret it how you want. It could be an interpretation move, or it just could be how they're trained. Remember, that part is there's no racism in that, but it's the attitude that they bring to you. That's where you find the racism or the white supremacy and all that, if you get a bad cop. So let me just praise cops in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of good ones, because I had 3 or 4 incidents where they stopped me. All right, it was very nice to me and said, hey, you know, I could take this car and impound it, and you got to find your way home, and I could take you to jail. Every single time, this first time, this guy said, I'm going to let you call he said, we'll tow your car to where you're going because you can't drive it. We'll tow it there. You got to pay the fee when you get there. You got to pay for it. But we'll put your car on it so you can take the car home on the tow truck. And I'm just going to give you a ticket. But I should be taking you to jail. White guy, young man, very nice to me and my wife. Now, do I think sometimes maybe if I was by myself, would he treat me differently? I don't know. I'm just happy I wasn't in that position. Now, dramatic pause. There are a lot of black men, we see this, and black women that do not have this experience. You get the person that's ready to shoot first, ask questions later, and be very disrespectful and looking for a reason to kill you. Now, most people might ask, and I'm gonna go a little deeper here before I talk about the other incidents. You may be asking why they're so quick to kill black people or Hebrew Israelites. Why? Go do your due diligence. When we became citizens or so-called citizens, look at the 13th Amendment, look at some of the laws that are written about slaves and their sons of slaves. You are not considered the same as a regular white person who's a citizen. Normally, most of the laws were written for white men, and then white women were grafted in later. But for black people, you are not the same as a white person. So they can take your life. And this is what I heard from an attorney. I heard this a long time ago. The attorney said to me, there are certain laws that you don't know about that protects them when they kill you as a black person that you don't know about, that was established in the Constitution. So they can kill you, and the attorney knows about the laws, and that's why they're able to get the cops off 90 to 95% of the time. Because there's certain laws written about you being this color, you're being a descendant of a slave. You're not the same, you don't have the same rights and abilities as a white person does. So the cops are trained, again, that goes back to white supremacy. There's the order to keep you in line. They're taught to do certain things to you, and the people at the top understand there's not going to be the laws against it, or it's not going to stop them, you know, from going to jail. It's going to keep them from going to jail because they know the system. They know what they can get away with. This is very intimate, deep information that most people never talk about, but that's why they do it at such a high level. You know, you saw Derek Chauvin, I'm not sure if I said his name right, who you know, for what he did to George Floyd in 2020 was on national television, but people were shocked to see him go to jail like that, get that many years, because it normally doesn't happen, because there's laws in place. And I'm telling you right now, Hebrews, okay, and white people, until the Most High comes and breaks the system down the right way with the kingdom of heaven system, it's never going to change. If it hadn't changed in 400 years, it's not going to change. Okay, there's so many things I want to talk about, but that's the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to say to you about how the structure works. So I had a good experience with him, and there were 3 or 4 more times where my license had lapsed, not expired, but basically it was suspended for, you know, I didn't pay the ticket in time, and I'm driving somewhere. And one time, listen to this, one time I took the tag off of the car and got stopped. I'm talking, me and Arlene were struggling with poverty like you could never imagine. There was no tag on the car. I'm speeding coming from Orlando back to Palm Bay. Cop ran me down. Nice white guy, white man. He said, just get back in your car. I'm gonna give you a small ticket. Just go straight home. Didn't give me no problem. I didn't feel the tension of him trying to kill me. I didn't feel that. But, and this is where you gotta be careful, black people. Just because you have good experiences with cops, don't jump out there and jump on the left or the right and start being political about it, not understanding you're supporting the white supremacist system when you do that. You make it worse. You jump out there and say, there's no racism. I haven't had a problem. In my town, they love me, and you're married to a white woman and all that. You think, you've been deceived into thinking that it doesn't exist. Big mistake. So although I had good experiences, I'm very careful to let you know, I know my brothers and sisters are getting killed daily, you know, for being black, driving while black. And if I had been in their position, I wouldn't be here either. But the Most High Yah allowed me to be protected. So I would never jump on and say it's not racism because I didn't experience it. That's total ignorance and foolish and rubbish, as Arlene's father would say. That's rubbish, right? Drama. Don't betray yourself and disrespect yourself and dishonor the Most High Yah to say that there's no racism, no white supremacy, nothing in place to keep you subjugated. until he comes with the next move on what we have to do as a people to get out from under the system, nothing changes. You know, you can talk to your blue in the face, and we know this because we read the word. We understand that certain systems do not want to let go. All right, that doesn't mean he can't protect you and provide for you and keep you safe, as he done for me and my wife. But that happened to me, and then it happened to me a couple more times, maybe 4 times. Every time it was a white officer, showed me mercy. I remember one time. This is gonna blow your mind. We was driving our Audi. We had a nice Audi A6 coming from. We're going from Palm Bay to church in Orlando, and I had one of my spiritual mothers with me, and we blew a tire. Listen to this, guys. We blew a tire. All right. Man, I'm glad the car didn't flip. So I went to the side. I said, "What are we gonna do here?" I had a spare, but I didn't have the tools in my car. For some reason, it was my own stupidity, right? I didn't have the tools to change the tire. I had to walk. Now this is in the middle. There's a big stretch between Orlando and Palm Bay, and I was in a wooded area, very rural area. And I did a due diligence on the town. I forgot the name of the town. It was a really small country town, but it's been known for a lot of racism. I had to walk up to the door, knock on someone's door, and say, "Please, could you come out and help us with our car?" Listen to this. 2 white men come out. These brothers were white, okay? I called my brother because they were there for me. And they said, "Where's your car?" I said, "My car is over there." One came out, helped me push the car into his property. The other one had, one of those, a nice one of those very advanced jacks. You know, you push it a couple times, it jumps up real high. Those, not one of the small jacks I had. And they had everything, and they actually helped me put the spare tire on, and they helped me fix the flat tire. They did all of that, okay? And I was dumbfounded because, again, the PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder, right, makes you think, because that's where you need therapy and help, that everybody's like that, and that's not the case. Although, again, it's a racist system, racist society, because it's built in the fabric going way back, but everybody doesn't have that white supremacist, I ain't gonna help you mindset, and they don't just necessarily, and we don't know the motive behind it, but to me, it looked like they were pure in heart. They were nice, smiling, wanted to help, didn't ask for a dime. So I had to get out of that because I didn't have a choice. I had to go and ask. And man, they helped me and helped all of us. And we was like, this could have been much, much worse. If the people that we were dealing with were really, really hateful, they could have pulled a gun out and killed us out there because it was a private property. I'm walking up on their property. They don't know who I am. They see these black people, treat me like a king. Rolled out the red carpet and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I think one of the guys said, "Do you need gas money or something?" He said. I said, "We're good from here." Guys, I hope you can understand. Whatever you just heard today, chew up the meat, spit out the bones, and be respectful if you comment on this post. But I want you to come from a very educated mindset. I don't mean you don't have to be the smartest person, but think things through. Use your past experiences and the things you really could understand about what I said to comment, because this is a touchy subject, but it's a discussion that has to be said, especially by myself, because I'm a so-called black leader. You know what I mean? I'm an entrepreneur. I have over 8 businesses now. You know what I mean? And I influence all types of people. I talk all day about finance and real estate and all that. And personal development and how to get bank loans and how to build a business from scratch, and how to develop your mindset to get where you want to be. But I very seldom talk about, tough subjects. Like, what about racism? What's going on with it? Who's being affected by it? How do we change it? How do we fix the problem? Most black leaders are so afraid to talk about it, even in the church, okay? Even in the church. And that's why I woke up and I was asking the Father in heaven, why did you choose me to wake up to this? He said, it's deeper than what's on the surface. This is deeper than politics. Am I telling you not to vote? No, I'm not. If you're spiritual, you'll seek the Most High. Some of us vote, some of us don't. I'm talking about black people now. But what I'm saying to you is, both sides, left and right, may have some good points. When I say left and right, I'm talking about Democrat, Republican. But from a spiritual standpoint, both sides had an argument about slavery. That's why you had the Civil War, right? So-called the North wanted us out. We found out, we dig deeper, that Abraham Lincoln was about his own agenda. It wasn't really about us, right? And they're talking about civil war again in other ways to figure out how to control you. So that's why you can't trust that system. You have to be further advanced and think about it. Not everything in it is bad, but this is spiritual. When you know, the Most High called me to be an apostle. So I think above all these systems, all of them, according to Ephesians chapter 1, if you have the revelation, you'll understand this. He set us above all principality and power in heavenly places with the Most High, right? With the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. We're in that high place. So we have to look down like the eagle and properly discern what's going on in the earth realm. Is it about black and white? Not necessarily. It's deeper than black and white. It's spiritual. Is it about the Hebrews and the Edomites and all these other nations and the fallen angels? You know, it's deeper than all of that. But if you don't have proper understanding, you don't have the revelation, you don't understand it. So it's my job to at least educate. Even though I'm a businessman, I have a moral obligation to my people first, that look like me first, to stand up. I'm not Dr. King, I'm not Malcolm X, but if you were to ask me who I'm more like, you know, I'm more like Malcolm X. I'm not gonna sit here and let you just talk about my people and be disrespectful and come in here and, no. I couldn't be a slave back in the day. I would have a rebellion. I'd have to kill me some people and get out of it. That's just how I think. You're not gonna control me that way. But we have to be more civilized, we have to be more educated, more articulate to navigate through this system in this country and in the world, because it's not just here, it's everywhere. We have to use wisdom and understanding, guys. And then, again, to all my white people out there, all my white fans and family members, because I'm married to, by marriage, them that I mentor and coach, some that I mentor me, all right? And you understand who we are and you love our people. You may not fully understand everything, but you have respect for us. I want you to fully grasp what I'm saying, and I love you from one brother to another, or to one brother to a sister, and I love my Hebrew people too. But we all have to wake up and have some accountability to what's going on, because people just don't want to talk about it, and I felt I had to do this today. I may not do this for another year, who knows, right? But as the Spirit of the Most High, the Ruach HaKodesh, as He ministers to me on what to say and what to do, I will be very vocal about it if I have to, all right? I love you all. As I always say, I'll see you at the top. And to the Hebrews, Shalawam, Shalom, to you guys, and from the Most High Yah, some say Ahaya, okay, Yahuwah, blessings. And as always, I love you. Let's keep praying for each other, okay? Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.